Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we do our week 9 opponent preview as the Packers host the Carolina Panthers, coming off of, or wait, shoot, is it? Yeah, it is week 9. Panicked a little bit. The Panthers haven't had their bye yet, so I was like, oh no, how many games have we played? But it is week 9. And yeah, the Packers are looking to go and keep their momentum going. Coming off the big win in Pittsburgh this past week, and you don't want to go and lay an egg against the lowly Panthers this week. So, Joe, are you feeling any better than you were on Sunday, health wise?
Do I sound better?
You do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's still there. I mean, I'm not testing positive for COVID anymore, so
That's
that's
good.
on the good side of things, but I still do feel some of it in my chest, and I do have an occasional cough, and I do have a headache, so it's not completely gone, but it's on its way.
Well, we hope that you continue to recover as well as possible, and like I said, hopefully the Packers will continue to oblige, keep your spirits up with more wins on the horizon. As I said, excuse me, you know, this is one of those. I think the Packers are past trap games at this point. You had the Cleveland game that was a loss already. You had the tough road game in Arizona, the plane trouble, all that kind of stuff. And you come off a back-to-back road trip between that Arizona game and the Pittsburgh game. And so now it's like, can you get into a rhythm at this point? You have back-to-back home games this week against Carolina and then the Monday night game against Philly. So can you get into a rhythm in terms of your preparation and your execution, really use that to slingshot yourself into this November run? And it has been something that LaFleur has excelled at with his teams over his tenure as the head coach, and you hope to see it continue.
Yeah, and on top of all that, you got to remember this is going to be the first time they wear their 23 uniforms. I see a lot of people are happy that when Romeo and them wear their Guardian caps, it's actually going to look like the helmets that they're using. So we did get a picture of that. And I am going to disagree with you a little bit on the trap game because we've seen in the past where the Packers like to play down to their opponents. Even though this is a game that they should just dominate, this is the same Panthers team that they were supposed to dominate a few years back and then it ended up being a down to the wire type. And now obviously they're completely different defenses than the past, different, most part different teams, but you still got to wonder about that. Yes, they played well enough against Steelers. Are they going to be able to put that same type of game against the Panthers?
Yeah, and that's really just what you hope to find out about this team. You just don't want to have a repeat of some of the past transgressions, I guess, so to speak, with how they've handled or not handled success in the past. And just really want to see them continue on here. Like I said, you want to see them just continue to succeed, for lack of a better term. Just don't, like you said, I know that I'm here trying to be optimistic about it, but I know there is a nagging thought in the back of my head that, oh man, like you really don't want to see them mess this one up. But, we'll see. That's kind of what Green Bay has. Like you said, it's kind of what Green Bay has and hasn't done in the past. And you just want to see them, improve as a team. But start off as we
I
usually
just keep
do.
going back to the Avengers Hawkeye meme where, don't give me hope because, eventually something's going to happen. It's like, God dang it, why did you do that friggin' thing? And so until they can show me, and the weird thing is, this has been the same type of Packers team for the last, I don't know, however many years. They have not played a complete game. We get three quarters, or we get half a game, or a quarter and a half, but we don't get that full game where everything's running cohesively as one well-oiled machine. The offense is doing what it needs to do to keep the defense off the field. The defense is limiting everything the other team does, and it just you can go out there and blow out a team 40-0 or whatever. You just that's what you hope for, but it never seems like the Packers can do that.
Yeah, so we're gonna find out what they do here. Like you said, I'm trying to be optimistic about it. I really want to see this team turn a corner here, but yeah, it hasn't always been the it hasn't always been how their modus operandi. So we shall see how they end up doing here. But start with the injury report like we usually do. Pretty clean for once. The Packers are entering a game in the middle of the regular season with shorter injury report than their opponent. Celebrate, that's reason for celebration. The more, I guess, dour, if you want to put it, news on the injury front is LaFleur was a little bit pessimistic regarding Nick Neiman's outlook in terms of what the prognosis is of his injury. After the game, I don't believe he really talked about it in the presser today, but after the game, he said it's a potential for a longer term injury. They're obviously going to play it up to the boundary in terms of when they if they determine to put him on IR or if they're going to slow play it. So that we won't know about that until Saturday when they do the roster designations and things like that. It
And the thing is if it's as bad as it being an actual torn pec that he's not going to be able to do it, why not just go ahead and IR him? You don't have to make a roster decision to put anybody there, but IR him, let him get the surgery or whatever, and go on with it. But don't slow roll him. Just slow roll filling the position.
Yeah. So we shall see. I think because it does kind of work out for them because I think Welch, he still has at least two call ups. I think he's only been called up once
I
so
don't
far
think
this
he's
season.
been
So
used at all, has he?
I thought he's been elevated. Great radio right now. Um,
Yeah, I don't think he's been used at all.
let's see. Oh, yeah, he has not. You are right. So, yeah, he still has all three of the elevations. So even if they were to put,
Trust me, I would know when a
even if
Hawkeye is on the active roster.
even if they were to put Neiman on IR, they could just fill three of those weeks with Welch call ups at this point. So they do have that option.
If
Or
it's a
if
torn pec, he's pretty well done for the
yeah,
season. Um, I not that I'm a doctor or anything, but I'm pretty sure that surgery leaves him out for a long while. So it would be more than just an elevation
yeah,
thing
I'm
for
trying to.
Welch. It would be just to bring him up.
I think Merciless tore his pec back in 2021, and it was around this time of the season, and he basically was out until they made the divisional game round. So that was like 2 months basically that he was out for, and so that's like the short end of things if Neiman were able to come back from that. So we'll see. And then Wicks, no update on Wicks regarding his chances of playing on Sunday. I would put him and Lucas in the they've been around a few years. So if they practice, you're listening to this on Thursday, hopefully. So if they practice Thursday, Friday, there's the chance that they would leave the door open for them to play. But based on the fact that we've got no update on Wicks, I kind of doubt he's going to play this week. The optimistic side of it is that LaFleur did say that Lucas is more day to day, but I do think that they slow play it. Even if he does practice Thursday and or Friday, I'm gonna assume they'll slow play it, and then because next week you have an extra day because the Eagles game is on Monday night, so you have one more day of recovery, rehab, and all that kind of stuff, and obviously more practice time if you just keep him off that foot for another week. So that's where I think they'll go. But it would be really nice if Lucas can make it back to practice at some point this week.
For
Otherwise,
sure, but I want to say
yeah,
something about the Wicks thing. Isn't it kind of fun when Watson got hurt a lot, or Jair got hurt a lot, or all these others got hurt a lot? Well, he's in Marshawn Lloyd. We're dealing with the Marshawn Lloyd stuff right now. That a lot of people will come out and say, "Oh, well, he's injury prone. He's injury prone." I haven't heard that about Dontavian Wicks, and it seems like he's never healthy.
yeah, he's So like as a rookie, he dealt with that weird shoulder injury where like I think it was the Panthers game where he like left at halftime because he like popped his I think he dislocated it or some crap like that. So sorry, and and then he has
You
dealt
think
with
he
some
would be the
weird
sick one?
soft tissue items injury the last couple of years. But yeah, I think it's because he's only missed like a game here or there, and it's not like when he has played, it's not like he's just totally a shell of himself. But yeah, you're right. It is just funny how different people approach different players in terms of their injury history and things like that. But to each their own. And then limited participants, the Packers had Aaron Banks with the shin, Jacobs with his calf, McManus still with the quad, Zach Tom listed with the back now, Christian Watson with the knee, which I assume he's just going to be on there for the rest of the season, and Wyatt. So no surprises for the Packer injury report. So I mean, it's kind of good news on that. One thing to note, or I guess two things technically to note, it is a good sign that both Warren Brinson and Matthew Golden are off the injury report after popping up on Friday. So take it as a sign that Golden made it through Saturday or Sunday's game with no setbacks, and Brinson. I've seen people question, if it was this or that, and I do think it was more of a because the injury propped up, they kind of just were like that made the inactive decision between him and Stackhouse for them on Sunday. I am curious which direction they're going to go this Sunday because on one hand, the Panthers want to run the ball. They like to run the ball. Rico Dowdle's having a good season. Chuba Hubbard has been injured, but he can, be a home run hitter. And so I am curious if they want Stackhouse's beef up front or because it looks like Bryce Young is going to play. He was a full participant in practice today. It does make you wonder whether they'll want Brinson's versatility and his agility, the ability to help attack and potentially contain Young in the pocket if they'll want that more than Stackhouse, who's only going to be a run stopper. So from an injury standpoint, we'll keep an eye on it as the week goes along, read out updates and all that kind of stuff. But for this point in the season, relatively clean for the Packers, honestly.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it's kind of surprising that we're at this point and the Packers have a less amount of people on their injury report than the Panthers do. But
Yeah. And so
any of
some
these guys,
notes. Oh yeah, go.
I was just going to say, any of these guys could potentially play. I mean, even some of the DNPs, depending on how Friday goes for them. But
Yeah, I
uh,
think the one update I saw is that their starting center, Cade Mays, is basically all but ruled out at this point. Taylor Moton, I think, is the other one who's not. It's or no, can't remember if they think Moton will be able to go or if they're not optimistic. And then it's Princely Umanmilen, the one Princely who I liked in the draft process. He is out this week, pretty much. So yeah, I'll try to find that tweet as we go through this episode again. Lost it, can't find it again. But
well,
health
it's a
standpoint,
good thing for them that Bryce is going because Andy Dalton was a DNP with a right thumb injury.
oh, he was bad on Sunday. He was so bad. like
Well,
there
it's
was
not just that, but if Bryce Young can't go, Andy Dalton can't go, they're down to their third string, and I don't know who their third string quarterback is. So, it's a good thing Bryce Young is trending in the right direction.
I think they would be on whatever their practice squad quarterback is because they don't have one listed on. They don't have a third quarterback listed on their depth chart. But yeah, so going into this game, the Packers are likely going to face Bryce Young. As Joe kind of noted, the Packers unfortunately helped Bryce Young look competent as a rookie. One of the last of the Joe Barry, damn it moments. But this time around, I am more optimistic that Halfley is going to put a better stamp on this game and have a
Hendon
better
Hooker is
performance
on
out of
their
his youth.
practice squad.
Oh, there you go. So that would be who would likely come in as the emergency quarterback if it came to it. But you know, let's just hope that that isn't or I guess yeah,
Oh, and
like
they got Mike White.
oh
Mike White and Hendon Hooker.
yeah. So as I was getting back to, you hope to see a better performance against Bryce Young this time around. A lot of the same faces for the Packers. Obviously we didn't have Micah Parsons that time, but and no Xavier McKinney either. But you hope that this time around, Packers are able to put a better performance out there and really just tighten the screws on this Panthers offense, which has been, it's had its moments, but overall, this is a unit that doesn't have a lot of answers for the things that Halfley likes to do. Their tight ends are relatively just guys kind of thing. Their O line it's okay. Ike Kwanu, who was kind of a draft darling a few years ago, he's had an up and down career. A lot of the questions about like his athleticism, he's looked really athletic there at left tackle, but from a technique standpoint, he's still kind of sorting himself out on a play-to-play basis and stuff. So you expect that Rashawn and Micah and the rest of the edge room will be able to have some success against him. And as far as receiver goes, it's kind of Tet McMillan and a bunch of guys. I know Xavier Legette is a name that Packers fans were really interested last year, but he's a guy who was like forced to be their wide receiver one last season and wasn't up to the bill. So, he's a little better because Tet is there, but still, this is one of those. I kind of expect Halfley to make someone else besides McMillan beat him at this point and just kind of set the table that way.
But with the injury report, it looks like they may be getting Jimmy Horn Jr. back, and he was kind of a guy that I liked coming out of draft. He's had limited time because of injury, so his stats aren't up there, but it is what it is. That also makes it harder for a coordinator because there's no real tape on him. So you don't know how he's going to be when he gets out onto the field. So, yeah, like you said, there's not much there. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is a name, and he's consistent, but he's not a guy that's going to be amazing. I'm trying to think of a word for it. He's not going to be world beater by any means, but he's the type of guy that would give the Packers a hard time just because he's a consistent threat that kind of something the Packers have missed for a long time, where he's going to catch almost everything that's thrown at him. He's not the fastest on the field, but he's good enough to get open. So he makes for a pain in the ass type of wide receiver more than anything.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. He's averaging under 6 yards of reception this season, but it would be one of those matchups where, like, if he's on, you don't necessarily want Bullard. It would be a big test for Bullard. On paper, he's a guy that you're kind of like, ooh, that might not be a good matchup for Bullard, just because of the kind of route runner Renfro is. But also, Bullard shows he can cover him or Jalen Coker. That's a really good showing for Bullard, who's having a strong season as the Packers slot defender. Also, what's it called? Schneidman posted when he questioned Hobbs on how he's doing the past week, and I know some people are like, "Oh my god, like he's not focused every play and stuff like that." To me, that's the flag that his knee, he still doesn't fully trust it, and him saying his concentration is not there on a play-to-play basis is because he's like, "Okay, this is the play call. I'm locked up on blank, and like if he cuts this way, am I gonna go with him or am I gonna be left in the dust?" kind of thing, and that's how I take it because it's like there's ways that players answer questions and do or don't tell the truth and stuff like that, and no one wants to admit they're injured.
He's basically playing like we talked about Jair a few years back with the back injury, where,
Yep.
is he playing at full speed or is he playing not re-injure that injury?
Yep, that's a really good analogy. Yeah, it's kind of where the Packers are at. And like we said, he suffered his torn meniscus in the late July practice, got surgery like at the very beginning of August, and missed all of training camp and preseason. So, and just tried to jump right back into action and stuff. And I know a lot of people are riding him and stuff, but I just don't think he's healthy. And it's not ideal, but he is a guy who came with an injury history. And while it's a bummer, I don't want to use the word fair, but it's tough to gauge if like he's a free agent bust or whatever if he's just not healthy right now. And I think that's more why LaFleur and Halfley were pretty bullish on his like availability and like how they're going to handle his snaps later on and stuff. And I think honestly, I don't think he was benched as much as it was like the knee's just not healthy, and we're gonna just give him like as many snaps off this past week in Pittsburgh and try and get it figured out over the week. So it'll be really interesting to see how they deploy him on Sunday, because whatever people think of him right now, they're going to need Nate Hobbs come the playoff push and the playoff run. If the Packers are going to get to where they want to go. So whether it's as a starter, as if he takes the slots position in like more against more pass happy opponents, or if Nixon continues to be up and down and you basically have the former Raiders duke it out for that spot opposite of Valentine, or if Valentine has has some slippage in his play too. Like there's never such thing as too many corners, and honestly, you do want to have a third guy that you're like could play on the perimeter in case, especially with the lack of track record or track record of the guys on this roster. So yeah, I think
Well,
that
I'm going to step back a little bit and kind of go at you on something though. I understand what you're saying about Hobbs maybe not being fully healthy and all that, but kind of I don't know if this is the pessimistic in me or what, but I would kind of put the blame on him a little bit anyway, because if you're not fully healthy, then you need to come out and say, hey guys, there's something not feeling right about my knee. I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know if it's actual. I don't know what's going on. That's why we're having this issue. You know, let's obviously he's going to have to end up on the injury report, because if they don't put it on the injury report, then they can get in trouble. That's where he needs to be having this conversation with them and not continually going out on the field and not living up to any kind of expectations that they have for him. So while I get what you're saying, there's also the flip side. This is also his fault by not speaking up.
yeah, that's
We're
true.
grown ass men. Just like me being sick, when I go to work, I told the boss, hey, I'm coming in to do you a favor so you don't have to find a replacement for me. But I'm going to do the bare ass minimum because I feel like shit. It's the same kind of thing with him. He's getting paid 100 times the amount of money I'm making. He can do the same thing. Hey guys, I know I'm not living up to it, but there's something wrong with me. We need to get something. I need to be checked.
Yep, that's very fair take on that side of it. But as much as we're talking about the Packers cornerback situation, where it's going to start for them is up front against this Panthers team. I kind of alluded to it earlier. They want to just put the ball in Dowdle and Hubbard's hands and have them just make their quarterback situation as irrelevant as possible. And it'll be on the Packers to, um, stifle that run game, which by traditional counting stats is the fifth best rushing attack in the league, just a hair under 137 yards per game. They run it just under 30 times per game. So you figure there's like 65 70 plays a game. They're at like on it would probably be a higher percentage of running plays if they had the lead in a bunch of these games, but they're forever playing from behind. Because like I said, especially when you're having offensive line issues, they're basically confirmed to be down their center this week, potentially without Taylor Moton, their right tackle. That's even more reason, especially against this Packers pass rush, which has seemed to find its fangs again the past few weeks. Don't want to be subjecting Bryce Young, who's coming off his own injury. I think it's an ankle sprain.
Yeah, it was an ankle.
Yeah, so you don't want him to get just bulldozed in the backfield in this game. So just really need to see where they're at, but the Packers are going to have to be sound in their run defense. I thought in standard formations they were solid against Pittsburgh, but when Pittsburgh rolled out their like jumbo packages where they use their backup guard as a extra tight end, they did have some issues with their run fits. It's partly the effect of Parsons trying to take inside tracks on guys, and partly because, like, try as he might, McDuffie is kind of undersized to be your Sam linebacker. He's a sawed off, like, not very tall, short armed guy. So when you ask him to try and take on tight ends, that's not his forte. He's more of a downhill thumper, not a like stack and shed at the line of scrimmage kind of player off the snap and stuff. So I am curious if, with Wyatt another week healthier, if Carolina tries to mimic some of what Pittsburgh did, if the Packers will employ some formations that Halfley did show in the preseason, where it was more of like a 5-2 look, where he had two of his ends and three of his defensive tackles on the field at the same time, or even, I don't think they'll do it too much, but you kind of line up like Rashawn and Parsons next to each other, and then you put either Inigbare or Sorrell on the opposite end, and then you just have two of the defensive tackles on the interior next to Gary and stuff. So just to get a little more beef up front, and then you just have Quay and Edge Cooper behind them to run and chase plays. And like I said, I think that's something that they couldn't really do last week because Wyatt was on some kind of snap count no matter what he says. So they just have a little more flexibility going into this game and how they're going to defend the run, because as a four-man pass rush unit, they should kind of have their day, and it's going to be more of a, are you going to be disciplined, try to rush down Bryce Young, or, you can't. He doesn't run that much as a pro, but he's still relatively athletic, even though he's a smaller quarterback, and you just don't want to give him opportunities to break the pocket and either extend plays to make throws down the field or just escape and run for yardage. He's averaged like 250 yards rushing a season. And for these kind of quarterbacks, as much as he's struggled overall as a passer, it's kind of weird how sometimes having rushing attempts makes these kind of quarterbacks feel a little more comfortable and at home in their element and stuff. So you want to keep him hemmed in the pocket and just get that interior push and just cut off his sight lines to his receivers and make the game hard for him, because for as good as they are running the ball, they're very lower third to lower end of the league in terms of their passing statistics. Like I said, for a team that spent as much time as it has trailing, they rank 29th and are under 180 passing yards per game. They're 28th in yards per pass. They're 25th in completion percentage, 20th in interception percentage, and 20th in sack percentage. So just a lot of chances for the Packers to create havoc on defense if they're able to stop the Panthers' run game, which, if there's an avenue for Carolina to make this game stupider and more interesting than it should, it's going to be if Green Bay is unable to stop their run game.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at their stats. Daddle's averaging 5.7 per attempt. That's like Aaron Jones type numbers right there. So you got to be kind of mindful on that. Chuba is a guy that I like coming out of college. Obviously, like you said, he's had some injuries and it's kind of held him back, but he's shown some flashes. I think the big thing is just, like you kind of said, containing Bryce Young, because depending on how the ankle is feeling and depending on how well offensive line is holding up, he's not going to be able to sit back and do anything. So he's going to have to be on the run a little bit more. Obviously, Micah's got some speed on him, so that's not a big worry. And your linebackers have got speed on them, so that's not a huge worry. But you can't. This isn't a Rodgers back there where he's going to be able to pick you apart because he's got genius level football IQ and all that shit. So he's going to make his mistakes. He's going to do things, but he's also a lot more athletic than Rodgers is at this point. So he's going to be able to break pocket. He's going to be able to get out and about, You just got to be able to contain them without destroying too much of your game plan. But again, on paper, this should be a no-brainer win, but just like I said, don't give me hope, because by the time I say all that, we'll get down to another 40 tie or whatever.
Yeah, just like I said, just don't let them hang around. Just yeah, don't let this team hang around on you. So you just want to stay on top of them, keep them down, and just take control of this game. The Panthers weirdly have a relatively solid defense. They're very middle of the pack, just like dead middle third, maybe even slightly above average in terms of yardage and points allowed. Well, they're only allowing 310 yards per game, which is kind of weird when you consider that they're where they stand in the league at this point. And I know they're 4-4, but they've just gotten shellacked in certain games, so it's kind of funky that they have the stats they do. And so yeah, so they're 11, 11th in yards allowed, but 20th in points per game allowed at 24 per. And where they struggle is they struggle in conversion settings. So they're allowing 42% of third down conversions, which is 25th in the league, and 63% of fourth down conversions, which is 22nd in the league. They're allowing 58% in the red zone touchdown percentage, and they're allowing just under 3 opponent touchdowns per game, which would be 21st. So Packers have their opportunities to score on this defense, and you just gotta. This is one of those where you look at their roster on paper, don't have any like real A+ pass rushers. Like I said, Princely is out this week, likely out this week. They're leaning on rookie Nick Scourton, who a guy that we kind of highlighted as a potential guy that the Packers would take, but he's still a rookie. And then their other starting edge is Trshawn Wharton, who's been a NFL journeyman. I guess, technically he does have a couple rings on his fingers with the Chiefs, but otherwise, he's been a bit player in their defense. And this is a front that, as pass rushers, Green Bay should be able to stifle them and hold them off. They do bring some beef up front in the run game. Ashawn Robinson and Derek Brown are two good run defenders, and then Bobby Brown rotates in as a third defensive tackle behind those two. So it'll be a good test for the Packers. The Packers O line. We've seen them get healthier. The pass protection has sort of what's it called? The pass protection has been better the past few weeks. Now it's time for that continuity to help out the run game, and I really hope they just settle on a guard at this point. That's not helping. I've seen a bunch of people like Dara post how they're having more success running left than they are to the right, but a lot of that is the fact that Zach Tom's been in and out of the lineup, or like just dealing with injury the whole season, and right guard has been unsettled because of like even before injury consideration, you were rotating Jordan Morgan in for Sean Ryan. And then, you had the Banks injury and all that kind of stuff. So you've just been playing hot potato with the right side of your old line. So this is kind of honestly, I think it's a good thing that the Packers are facing this interior this week, because you go this week and then you face the Eagles with their former Georgia Bulldog tandem, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis next week on Monday night. So this will be a good test for the Packers to see if they can get some movement in the ground game, hopefully push some bodies around, and see if it'll set them up for success down the back stretch of the season. So I'm hoping to see some movement in the run game and hopefully see it pay off for them as the season goes along.
You think if we offered to let them score an easy touchdown, they'd let us take J.C. Horn after the game?
Just don't let him leave the stadium. Just lock him in his bathroom stall.
Because, yeah, I mean, defensive wise, it's not great. I mean, obviously they got Derek Brown, and that was when the whole Micah thing went down. The rumor came out that they were talking to the Cowboys were talking to the Panthers about Micah Parsons, and they said, "Well, we want Derek Brown," and that's when the Panthers pretty much hung up the phone and said, "Not going to happen." So, he is a player, he is solid, but outside of that, yeah, there's nothing really there. I mean, their corners aren't bad. Michael Jackson and J.C. Horn. Uh, I definitely would take one of them right now over Nixon or Nate Hobbs, but like you said, just don't shoot yourself in the foot. Go out, make smart plays. Jordan's been kind of on a tear right now, so continue that. Get your guys open, keep them open, and this is the game where we need to see all gas, no fucking break. Wake up with your piss hot, and all the other cliches that LaFleur has thrown out there over the years. So let's see it with this game. Let's not play down to these guys. Let's not revert back to only scoring 27 points and hoping that's going to win you a game and go from there. So, yeah, yeah.
Yep. So I agree with you. Like, the spread for this game is 13 and a half. The Packers are expected to win by 13 and a half. That's the point. That's the spread. And then the over under is 44 for the game. So, you figure the Packers win by 14 points. If you're scoring, they're magical, like you said, they're magical 27 points. It's kind of like, oh, wait, that's under kind of thing and stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see, how this game plays out. But time will tell in terms of how it looks. But yeah, like you said, it would be really good to see them get get themselves in position to be scoring 30 consistently on this season. And I do think Watson's continued availability will help with that. Like, that's kind of been one of the indicators for this Packers offense under LaFleur, under Jordan and LaFleur, is like, if Watson's out there, this is like a consistently 30, 32 point offense kind of thing. And when Watson's not out there, I mean, this year it's been 27 points. You know, you want to see them push it those extra few points to get over the 30-point mark. Because if you're averaging 30 a game, you're going to be winning a bunch of games in the modern NFL. That's just how it works. And that's before you even consider what kind of defense Green Bay brings to the table. Anything else that stands out to you on this one, Joe, or you want to just move along into the next segment?
I think we can just move along because I think we've pretty much touched on everything. Again, and for like the third or fourth time, you just hope that LaFleur actually lives up to the hype that he wants for the team. If they go and play like they played in the second half of the Steelers game for the full game against Carolina, well, let's even say they do it for the first half of the Carolina game, then you can start putting in backups in the second half because there's not a lot here in the Panthers defense that you can be worried that they're going to make a comeback on anything because they're going to I mean not make a comeback, but they're going to stop anything that you throw at them. You could easily have Bears game from however long ago where it was like 55-7 by halftime, and then you don't have to worry about any kind of comeback attempt because you're up so far, and then any points you score on in the second half is just you know the cherry on top. So I think we're good on this one.
Sounds good to me. So you want to go into our over-unders?
Yeah, I kind of struggled a little bit with coming up with these just because I've been getting burned each week on when I make them up because they keep just screwing things over. My first one is more of a pissed off Joe moment than anything, and that's Matthew Golden over under 3.5 catches.
I'm gonna go. Ooh, do I need to reverse jinx this? We're gonna stick with the over one more week. I think he's gonna have 5 catches this week.
I keep hoping that he's gonna have his breakout game. where it's going to be like 7 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. I'm kind of disappointed in a way. Not necessarily because it happened. I'm happy what happened and everything, but it's kind of disappointing when your third round rookie wide receiver gets his first career touchdown before your first round rookie wide receiver gets his. I'm going to go over just on hope and then blame Mike when it doesn't happen.
Always a good strategy.
So my next one is just kind of a oddball one just because eventually some numbers are going to straighten out and things are going to happen where he's still going to play on a high note, but it's not going to be as electric as it was last week or a couple of the other games he's had this year. But Tucker Kraft over under 1.5 touchdowns.
I'm going under. I think he'll get one, but I think that, the way they spread the ball around, I don't think he's going to have a 2 touchdown game.
But even when they spread the ball around, it seems like he continues to get his no matter what. So I'm going to go over just for chaotic effect and say he does get the 2. Maybe that's my reverse jinx, is by saying he's going to get 2 is going to help Matthew Golden out at least get his 1. So my last one is I've got defense over under 3.5 sacks.
I'm going under, and not even to reverse jinx them. I just think that they're gonna lean into they're gonna lean into their, what's it called, collapse the pocket rush, contain Bryce and stuff. And if the Packers, the way I see them getting a bunch of sacks is if they do get up like 3 scores at some point in this game, and it's just like, now you got to throw the ball and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that the Panthers are going to kind of do what like the Bengals and the Cowboys did, where they're just going to try to get the ball out of Young's hands as fast as possible. A lot of perimeter screens and quick hitting things. I don't expect too much over the middle of the field because Bryce ain't that big. I don't think he can see over the line of scrimmage very well, especially with Green Bay's defensive front. We've got a lot of big bodies out there, and it is funny that ESPN actually does list Bryce at 5'10". So, man, not doing some
That's awful
funny money.
generous.
I do think it is generous too. But yeah, like, expect a lot. I do think their passing game. Actually, what am I saying going back that far? I think their passing game is going to look a lot like the Steelers one this past week, where it's going to be a lot of things to the flat, maybe a few intermediate routes on plays where like Micah and Rashawn aren't on the field. But I just think that if they're forced to pass, they're going to get the ball out as quick as they can. And, they'll have a couple sacks, one of those like half coverage kind of ones, and then one where I do think it'll be Micah where he just wins immediately and Bryce has to just eat it kind of plays.
I'm going to go over because of the fact of what you said earlier about they're going to go up 2 or 3 scores, and that means that they're going to have to continue to throw the ball and not be able to lean on their run game. I kind of hope, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I do kind of hope that they have both Brinson and Stackhouse active. I haven't done the math in my head to see who would not be active for the game for that to happen, but I kind of hope that they do. That way they could help out a little bit, stop that run a little bit more, and it doesn't put that extra pressure on Devontae Wyatt. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say they're going to hit about 4, and I think Mike is good for about 2 of them.
Well, and bring up how do they get to the inactives. So when you look at it just at a number standpoint, if the 3 guys who are DNPs today, and it does kind of sound like all 3 will be out, with Wicks not getting any sort of update, Lucas being quote unquote day to day, and Neiman being potentially more long term, that's 3 already. And then it's like, okay, so do you really expect Kamal Haddon to be up this game? I think that's an easy 4th. And then from there, it's like, okay, between Brinson and Stackhouse, do they beat out? Let's see, hold on. Like, is a Donovan Jennings inactive or something like that? So,
I don't know. It depends on how much that they think the Tom and Banks injury is going to affect things.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think Banks is basically being listed for the sake of being thorough. I do think there's some, legitimacy to Tom's status, but I think overall they're fine with it.
And then, of course, Belton is just now coming back off the injury report, so
So yeah, they're gonna have they're gonna definitely have one lineman inactive because they have 9 on the active roster, and I think it just comes down to a matter of whether they want Jennings or Monk active on game day, and so that's 5. Like I just think that there is a very easy way to get to 5 inactive players that leaves you with both Stackhouse and Brinson up for this game, and like we both alluded to, the Panthers are going to want to run the ball, and you need the beef up front to stifle that run game. So this would be a good one to have all 5 defensive tackles active, especially because you're down Lucas, so you're not getting defensive tackle snaps from one of your edges who's I do think he's one of their more disruptive interior players when he plays at the 3 technique position. So, but it's been really good to see Wooden. Yeah,
limits.
yeah. And then this is another thing, kind of like we pointed out to how, like, for the Packers interior O line, it would be a good warm up for the Eagles game. Obviously, the Panthers O line isn't anywhere near, but any reps you can get for the young guys, Stackhouse, Brinson, but also for Wooden, because he's still only this will only be his 8th game into playing like the majority of the nose tackle snaps in this defense. So the more reps you can get him, the more he can. And I think to me, Wooden's turned up his intensity and his impact the past couple weeks. He obviously had the stellar week 1, and then he's kind of just been a good soldier in the the middle portion of the games they played. But against Arizona and against Pittsburgh, he did start to flash again with more negative plays created and those kind of things. So want to see those tick up a little bit. And I think Brooks has really rounded into form the past 3 to 4 games. So want to continue to see that going. But also, we talk about it all the time. Brinson, Stackhouse, Savion, Golden. What do we always say? By the end of the season, when you're in the playoff push, you want those guys to be playing like 1-year vets, not rookies. So whatever snaps you can get those guys, legitimate snaps you can get them in the middle of the season, it can only benefit you down the home stretch of the season.
God dang.
Any other thoughts on this one?
My partner and give
I know it has been a lot of fun to go through all the like, this is who led the team in this stat last year, and this is how they were led that year, and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. So it has been really good to see, and it's just really nice that the team is taking off at this point in time, and you just want to see them continue to raise their level of play as you get through the meat of their schedule at this point. Did you have anything else on this game, or did you want to just kind of start to put a bow on and get you some rest for the night?
No, I think we're good. Other than Tuesday, I think it is the trade deadline. So I know there are the rumors that the Packers have been making phone calls. Easton Butler still holds out hope that they're going to be signing Asante Samuel Jr. because he keeps posting continual updates. I think the last one was that he's just now been cleared for workouts. He's probably not going to sign this week, but look ahead for next week, and it's like, well, if he just now got cleared for workout, then he does nothing for what the Packers need this year. So, yeah.
I
But
mean,
anyway, just
that's a signing for the playoffs at this point, and it does give you enough ramp up time that by the middle or end of December, he would be able to give you something hypothetically. So that's where you're hoping to get that. But I agree, the window on that potential option is closing. But that's the thing, is there just aren't a lot of options, and I know that a lot of people are wringing their hands over like the McCreary trade to the Rams, or the who they
the
send
only
that
other one
to?
that I can think of is Carter from the Jets.
Yeah, the Eagles. But that's 2 slot defenders, and the one thing the Packers don't need is another slot defender. So
I just know, listening to last week's Hey, We Like Your Pod, that Don brought up like 3 or 4 different articles that all independently brought up McCreary's name. as a possible for the Packers. So that was like the first time I had heard anything about him. But I mean, there are some guys out there that can be had. There are some former Packers that probably could be brought back in a pinch. And this isn't a Jair. I mean, I was just looking at the Panthers practice squad. They have Kalen King over there, so that would be a possibility to bring back. I think Corey Ballantyne on a practice squad somewhere. Rochelle is on a practice squad somewhere. So I mean, those are guys that they could potentially bring back if need be. But yeah, things are starting to close very quickly. I would say if nothing happens on Monday, then you're probably not going to see anything out of the Packers, even though they still have all day Tuesday. But I just, unless it happens on Monday, I don't see any last minute things happening.
I agree. So, you know, if there is anything, we'll definitely post and note it in our opponent preview next week. But otherwise, yeah, I think if they do anything, it's going to be a street free agent signing, and those names don't. They're not going to get a rise out of a lot of people, but that's the fact of the matter. That's what that's what's available at this point. But
Or a guy from a
um,
practice squad, like a Razul Douglas type thing.
yeah. So, but for now, we'll just sign off, do our sign off. We thank you for joining us here tonight. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Check out the shop, support merchandise, help help Joe get paid for his medications to get over this most recent bout with COVID, so that he's totally, fully 100% for when we do our next episode. You know, as fitting as it is, he has the Tucker Craft line ready to go for you on the shop. So support us there. Articles are going up.
One thing, let's do a programming note before I completely forget. So Sunday is a noon game. Brian and I will probably go live about an hour after the game ends. I'll have to talk to Brian on that to make sure, but that's what it looks like. But because the following week is a Monday night game, there will not be a new episode on Monday. It will come out the next morning on Tuesday. I haven't decided if Mike and I are going to do like a midnight live stream yet or not, just to do it, or if we're just going to say no live stream because it's a Monday night game and just do our normal episode for Tuesday. That's something Mike and I will talk about, but I just want to do that before I completely forget about it. That we will most likely go live following the game, do our post game show, and then episode come out on Monday. But the following week, because it is a Monday night game, there will be no episode on Monday. It will come out on Tuesday.
Good catch. That's why he's the boss. Please follow us on our social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Please follow us on Facebook. So, when we do those live shows, like Joe is mentioning, that we can stream them to Facebook as well. On Blue Sky, we do not have a Ohana Packers Edition
Just
account.
follow me over there. I
Just follow,
tweet
yeah,
anything on there.
yeah. Just follow us individually on there. Joe is much more active than I am on that site, but I do mosey my way over every once in a while. Excuse me. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. And you can message any of us directly, message the social media accounts if you have any topics, questions you want answered on the show or discussed. Please help us out that way. We want to create the content you're looking for. The Packers look to stay atop the NFC, not just the North, but the NFC conference with another win. They pushed the record to 6-1-1 against the Panthers on Sunday. Go Pack Go, and aloha.